Hello, everybody. Welcome. I want to continue talking about these things that are happening in my life here. And I wanted to talk about some of the comments I've been getting about the things I've been saying lately. Some people saying they're shocked that I had high cholesterol and was overweight. And just people expressing what they're doing or what's working in their life, which is so important for me to remind people of what I say. This is what's working for me and what I'm doing, because some people say they're doing the high fat for a long time and they don't have high cholesterol. A lot of people, a good amount of people, replied that the cholesterol thing is a myth. Who says it's too high? Because in the 50s you could have cholesterol in the 300s and they called that normal and that was fine. And they said now doctors are saying cholesterol at 220 is okay. So what's really high and what's not high? And it's important to understand when you take a blood test what the blood test means, because they get these numbers of blood tests of what's good and bad based on a bunch of unhealthy people, pretty much the world. So it's like when somebody says you're underweight, am I really underweight or is everyone really overweight? So when you look at the blood test, is my blood test really low or is everyone just too high? And in some instances, this is the case. So you can't just take a blood test. You have to know what it means for somebody of where you're at and what you're doing. Now, in terms of me doing what I'm doing and that's working for me, I work with Dr. Fred Bishey, who's been doing this a very long time, and he understands how to translate those blood tests and translate what I'm doing. And people are ultimately going to know, hopefully, what's going best for them and not put their hope in some medical doctor that really doesn't understand health, nutrition, and certainly not the raw food diet. A couple of the comments, people were saying, oh, the vegan diet is so neurotic. Well, I don't know how far you want to go to define the word neurotic or the feelings of neurotic, but to really go to the extreme, to get down to pinpoint of what's the best thing healthy for you or not is important. If I never looked into this topic, I could have been at a high risk for cardiovascular disease for many years and not done anything about it. I took care of the homocysteine levels a long time ago, but if I didn't look into it, I'd have high homocysteine, high cholesterol, high LDL. Regardless of what label you want to give your diet, that's not going to help you if you don't do something about it. Several people mentioned Dr. Goldner, who puts people on a diet with a good amount of chia and flax seeds to get their omega-3s. And this doctor appears to have much success, so I tried to reach out to her to do an interview with her, unsuccessfully. If anyone knows how I can get in touch with her, let me know. But from what I'm seeing out there, the chia and the flax alone, people say that's not enough. You need to add more. You need to add more to get your omega-3s. Food alone can't do it. Maybe or maybe not. And now that comes to the omega-3 test. How do you test your levels? There are some people like Joel Fuhrman, who I interviewed, that said there's a great test, the omega-3 test, which I'll put a link below, that measures it just wonderfully because it measures the blood. But then I interviewed Gadolf Palmer, who said that's not a good measurement of your true amounts of omega-3 you have. It's stored in the tissue, and it's inconceivable to think you would measure your tissue in your brain to see if you have enough omega-3 stored up. But he's explaining that, in fact, the omega-3 supplement is not a healthy thing to do, or at least the common algae oils and fish oils are not the ideal things to take. And he has something called ackee flour or ahi flour. And I have an interview with him. I'll put that link below. Well, what I decided to do was, this is such an interesting topic. I spoke to Dr. Fuhrman and well, he's not a doctor, but Gadolf Palmer, and I want to get them both together to discuss this. So they're going to, and they've agreed to let me be the go-in between both of them and talk about it. And if it happens and comes out together, great, and I'll air that. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I just want to post both links below so you all could see both sides of what they're saying about this topic. And I'm asking a lot of people about this because that's where I'm not now. Where I'm at now is I'm experimenting with the omega-3 and my levels as a vegan, which is really low on the omega-3 test. I've tested for several years in a row now, and it stays low, even adding the flax and the chia seeds. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with Dr. Goldner, at least if this test is accurate, because I've been adding it and it hasn't been moving. So now I'm experimenting with the algae oil. Now it's interesting because it must have been 10 years ago I interviewed from Hallelujah Acres, Reverend George Malcolmus, who has a vegan diet according to the Bible. That's what he promotes. But he added fish oil to his diet. And I said, why did you add fish oil to your program? And he said he was doing the algae oils and they weren't doing a job. And there's a doctor that works with Hallelujah Acres that told him, that's not good enough. You need to add the fish oil. So he started adding that. And I hadn't spoke to him afterwards, and he was older at the time, and he's since passed because he was pretty old at the time. But he said that was something he did kicking and screaming. He didn't want to, but all the research by Dr. I forgot the doctor's name showed that that's what should be done. The person I trust the most on this is Dr. Fred Bishop, that says he hasn't taken anything and he's absolutely fine. His mental capability is fine, and he's 96 years old and he's doing great. The more issue is not what we're adding to our diet, it's what we're eliminating and getting the processed food out and the junk food out and things like this. So this is a topic to explore and think about. And I'm excited to get my results. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this test now where I'm taking an algae oil. And this is so interesting about it that I mentioned in my last video. Dr. Josh, who's another person I interviewed from Hippocrates Health Institute, says the omega-3 oil is excellent. The test is wonderful. But what the omega-3 recommends on a bottle is insignificant because it's too low. So I got a bottle of omega-3 vegan algae oil, and it says take 1 or 2 capsules a day. Well, Dr. Josh at Hippocrates Health Institute, which is a Harvard PhD, says he recommends 3 grams a day, which would be about 10 to 12 of the vegan algae oils a day. So, for curiosity reasons, I want to see or get some idea if I take that amount, will it push the test one way or the other? I'm going to interview together Dr. Furman and Guido Palmer and try to come to some understanding while they're both saying what they're saying and do as many tests as possible for those things. But there are some things I am doing in my diet that I have found to work over the years. So the omega-3 thing is something, it's an ongoing experiment where we could learn and move forward. The cholesterol thing, I want to believe I figured it out, and basically doing 1 meal a day and not doing fats and well, pretty much following food combining, not doing fats and sugars together in the same meals. Also, not doing 2 different fats in the same meal. So I'll either have nuts one day or avocados one day, but not both in the same day. Seems to be working. I did the no fruit, and that didn't lower my cholesterol at all. And now doing fruit, my cholesterol had come down by not just going on 1 meal a day, by cutting back on the fats. Now, was it really the fat, or was it that I'm just not combining them anymore and paying more attention to that? This can all seem quite confusing. But that's why we need to do the experimenting to kind of get an idea of what works. And when I say for me, I'm different than the average person because I've been eating a raw vegan diet for 30 years now. But hopefully it gives you some kind of information what to figure out for what you're doing, and maybe figure out if you have one of these things, how you can deal with it. Because you have to remember, homocysteine, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12 all work together as well. And these are things you want to consider and look at too when you're looking at for overall cardiovascular health. But what I want to do here now is talk about some things that I have been doing throughout the years that I know are beneficial, and I highly recommend them. And it's important because some of you are asking me about these things. And the last one on this is I'm experimenting with. I don't know much about what it's going to do, but I want to talk to you about that and get your feedback if you've been having any experience with it at all. So I'm going to mention several different things here, and if you're not doing these things, I think you should do these things. And the last one is another, I guess, experimentation to see if it's going to work or not. So the first one is juicing. Juicing is such an important part of my life. I've been juicing since I got into this many, many years ago. And most people simply don't do enough juices. Now, from my experience, I do not recommend fruit juice at all. At all. I used to recommend you can add an apple or to sweeten up a green juice. No, I don't recommend fruit juice at all. Vegetable juices and are excellent. I recommend them. And the problem with juicing is it's often time consuming for people. Well, the new Nama J2 juicer is amazing technology and changed my whole life when it comes to juicing and just health in general. So I definitely recommend the Nama J2 juicer to help making your juicing path more simple. But for those of you that have been watching my videos here the last couple of weeks or months, especially the last couple of videos I put, when I went to one meal a day, I ran into a problem where I wasn't going to the bathroom. Now, this isn't a good thing at all. Was I not getting enough food? What was the deal? Well, I cured that problem by adding a juice to my diet. When I do a green vegetable juice to my diet, and it's usually anywhere between 16 to maybe 24 ounces, but when I add a green vegetable juice to my diet, I go to the bathroom with no problem. When I leave that juice out of my diet, either I'm not getting enough food or I'm not getting something to push something through or something, my bathroom habits aren't as good. So besides all of the amazing benefits you're getting from the nutrients in the juice getting directly into the body, your bowel movements, this can help. And I know it's helped me. I do recommend juicing. Now, a question is juicing considered another meal by itself, or is it no meal? Well, anytime you put food in the body, it's actually has to work, or nutrients in the body. So juicing technically is not a meal. It's a meal. It's a very small meal. If I have a juice right now, I'm eating a meal. I'm drinking a meal. But it's not the same as just not doing anything. Now, it takes the fiber out, so it's a lot less work for the body to process it, but it is in fact a meal. So what I've been doing is when I do juice just to get the nutrients, I'll juice, and then 15 minutes later, I'll stop my meal of whether it's fruit, and then after that, maybe wait a half hour and then have my salad. So that's my one meal a day. But what really got things moving here was when I would juice after my meal. So I would eat my meal, let's say around noontime, and then in the evening around 6 or 7 o'clock, I would have a green vegetable juice. And then like clockwork, I'd go to the bathroom. But when I left that juice out, it didn't always happen. So I know there's a great benefit to juicing. There's so many benefits to juicing. So I'm going to put a link below to the juicer, the Nama J2 juicer. You can get 10% off the juicer. It's definitely worth it. I'll put a link below for that. So the other thing is sprouts or living foods. So when I signed up for Hippocrates Health Institute a long time ago, they didn't say raw food. They called it living foods. What is the difference and the benefit between living foods and raw foods? Well, raw foods means just not cooked. It's raw. But living food means the food's still alive. So there used to be people that say, well, cooked food is dead and raw food is live. Well, not really. Cooked food is dead, but raw food is neutral. Living foods is where the most of the nutrients are, and it's just the highest quality food you can get on every single level. And living foods are sprouts and microgreens. So I'm going to have more videos coming out on that. But sprouts and microgreens. So if you could juice your microgreens like the pea sprouts and sunflower sprouts and even wheatgrass, I mean, that's the top things you can do is to juice sprouts, the microgreens. And then the question comes when you're on a raw vegan diet is, where do you get your protein from? Where do you get your protein from? Well, some people say you can't eat beans raw. Well, you can. You can eat them living. So if you take beans, mung beans, azuki beans, and lentils, and you sprout them, which are so simple and easy to do, they grow a little tail at the end, and they just make them digestible. And now, without destroying any of the nutrients or enzymes through cooking, you're eating pretty much beans that are loaded with protein, loaded with nutrients, and healing for the body. And then you could also add sprouts and living foods to your salads. Broccoli sprouts can be up to 100 times more potent in fighting diseases, and it's amazing by just adding that to your salads. And they're so simple to make. That's the amazing thing. So I definitely recommend juicing and the sprouts to the diet. It's probably two of the main staples of the Hippocrates Health Institute diet. Juicing and sprouting. They have a juice every day there. It's cucumber juice, celery juice, and sunflower sprouts that they serve their clients every single day. Hippocrates Health Institute is a wonderful place to go. It's a place where people give up on, doctors give up on people, and people either go home to die or they go to a place like this. But you don't necessarily have to just go there. Now you can do the program at home through understanding what they're doing. You can make the juices that they're making there at home in your own juicer. You can eat the same recipes. They have recipes right on their website. So I definitely recommend either getting to a Hippocrates Health Institute because of just being there is going to help you do it. But that's not an excuse if you can't get there not to do it. And then two more things I want to talk about. Another important part of the Hippocrates Health Institute program, which I feel is in combination with not overeating and not eating late at night is the way to go, is fermenting foods. Now, fermenting foods, they enhance the probiotics in the food, the good, healthy bacteria that's going to help you and your gut. So there's sauerkraut, and there's kimchi, and there's other pickled vegetables you can use to help restore that healthy bacteria in your gut that's going to help you. Again, you can easily buy these fermented foods from your local supermarket. However, they're not difficult to make once you get the hang of it and you learn how to do it. They're not difficult at all, and they're more inexpensive than buying the product at the store if you just buy the produce and pickle it yourself. And that's a big part of their program also. That's true living foods. You got the sprouts, the microgreens, and the fermented foods, and the live juices that you drink, and it just works. It's what we were designed for. In the Bible, in Genesis, in chapter in the first part of Genesis, it talks about our Creator created these sprouts, created these living foods for us to eat. He created the herbs and the fruits for us to eat and for our medicine and how to live and what our body is created for. And then another important part, and I'm mentioning these things because these are the keys that most people leave out of their diet. Again, true health doesn't begin with what you add to your diet. It begins with what you eliminate. Eliminate the things that are creating the problems, and the problems will begin to go away. But what are you going to have in your diet? What are you going to do in your diet? It should be juicing. It should be sprouts, the living foods, the microgreens, the fermented food. And then finally, we have to understand that unless you're growing food yourself, unless you're growing the vegetables in your own garden, in your own house, and you know what is going in and how it's being done, most of the produce that's sold in the store is not healthy. Even in the so-called health food store, it's not the ideal foods for your body. And you can learn about wild foods growing in your area, which I do recommend because those weeds people step on are actually healthy for our bodies, not after they step on them, but just to know what they are and get them. And most of them are edible. Some are poisonous, so know the difference. But once you figure that out, that's a powerhouse. But what forms of vegetables can we get that are so high in nutrients and minerals and vitamins that haven't been touched by man, that haven't been messed with? You look at the ocean floor and all of the nutrients that are down there. And of course, you got to get it where the ocean is clean, because of the toxicity of the water, it doesn't help the situation. But sea vegetables, and it doesn't just mean sea, I'm eating these vegetables. It's vegetables from the ocean. Somebody said, you mean like seaweed? That's exactly what I mean. Seaweed is healthy, and there's so much kinds of seaweeds out there that are wonderful. So I definitely recommend people add more sea vegetables to their diet. There's two products from the ocean that I take. One's from lakes and the other's from the ocean. But I definitely recommend them both. Well, I definitely recommend one of them, and the other one's a test I was talking about. One of them is called astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is a red algae that literally protects the lakes from any harmful bacteria or anything that is just not healthy. And we could ingest that in our body, and it can protect us as well. The problem is the manufacturers caught on to this, so they all started selling astaxanthin, and it wasn't working. And it doesn't work unless you get it from this company, which is called Velasta, because the owner of Velasta, who had cancer and reversed his cancer by doing massive amounts of astaxanthin, what he did was he found a way, and it's patent approved, not even pending, approved, to treat cancer and other diseases. He found a way to connect the astaxanthin with glucose, so when you ingest it, actually, the body can grab that glucose with the astaxanthin and use it and make it more accessible for your body cells to get it. So if you buy astaxanthin from anywhere else, it's not really absorbable. But this one is extremely absorbable. And I have so many testimonies on my website about this. It's called Astaxanthin by Velasta, and I have it at rawlife.com, and I'll put the link below. If you want to change your health picture, if you want to overcome inflammation, which is the most common symptom of disease out there, you want to take this astaxanthin. And the real way I know it works, through testing blood, my blood, and looking at other people's blood tests, is C-reactive protein, which is a blood test called CRP. And that measures the inflammation in your body. And if that's high, over 2, something is going on, and you need to do something and change something. Well, the astaxanthin is the greatest anti-inflammatory product you can take in the world, and it's going to reduce the inflammation wherever it is in the body. And it works. It works great for cancer. It works great for arthritis. It works great for just about everything, because inflammation is the result of whatever it is you put in your body that's causing the disease to begin with. So Velasta astaxanthin by it's on rawlife.com. You can get that. Check that out and see all the testimonials I have on my website about that. Absolutely amazing. I'm gonna come up with another testimony video coming out here real soon, so look out for that. So the last thing I want to mention here today, and I invite your questions below about all these things, is something that I started taking recently at highly recommended. I started taking it, and I'm not 100% sure about it, but I'm feeling good about it because it comes from the ocean and it's high in minerals. And I don't know if it's marketing or whatever, but a lot of people have great testimonials. And it's something called sea moss. Sea moss. And you can buy it either just dried, or you can buy it in a gel form. And people have tremendous amount of testimonials with this. But anytime you're getting sea vegetables, in any type of sea vegetables, that's why I have dulse and kelp and nori in my diet, is you're getting nutrients that have been stripped out of the land. The stuff that's grown in poor soil, the produce we're eating from the health food stores is missing those minerals. But when you get it from the sea vegetables, you're getting the minerals that are created, designed to be our foods and our medicine. And sea moss is one of those So sea vegetables that are excellent for our body. And recently, I'm so excited about this. I was buying the gel. I stopped buying the gel and I bought the dried sea moss for a fraction of the cost. And I made my own gel. And I was shocked how easy it was to do. It was so simple. And I'll make a video on how to do that. And it tastes better as well. But maybe my viewers could tell me if you've experimented with trying sea moss and have you felt different? Has it made a difference in your blood work? What's your experience with that? I'm going to continue to experiment with that and let people know. And all of these different things I've been doing all along except the sea moss. But anytime you change something, it can affect the results of everything, right? So when I have my results and talk about in these videos of what's going on for me and what's working for me, that doesn't mean that you're going to have the same results I have. There's so many other exogenous complications that can cause disease and like things like stress and the air we breathe and just how much sleep we're getting and lack of exercise that can change the numbers on the blood test as well as just diet. But for diet, we pretty much got it down of what's working and what's not working. And, I hope from at least a diet standpoint, people are following this. Look, the bottom line is, people are overeating. They're eating too much, too often, and too late. And that's the number one place we need to start out with. We need to eat less often. We need to eat less in the amount of meals we're eating. And we have to stop eating late at night. I wrote a book called The Daylight Diet that talks about the harmful effects of eating late at night or eating when it's dark outside, eating before going to sleep. And this is something so many people do, and it's a problem. It's a big problem. So whether you're one of those people that believe the vegan diet isn't good enough and you need to eat meat, or the paleo diet, or any of these type of diets, you'll have success on any diet if you cut down the amount of food you're eating and how often you're eating. However, if you want to take it to the next level, I believe if you're having juicing, fermented foods, the living foods of the sprouts and microgreens and the sea vegetables, you're going to improve your health tremendously. But you must reduce the processed junk food, the things in the supermarket that come in bags, box containers, or cans. You must reduce that junk. You do not need it. The only wrapper around your food should be the skin around a fruit or a vegetable. And another thing some people mention is nuts and seeds. I'm kind of suspect that nuts and seeds might have been the cause of my high cholesterol to begin with. And say it wasn't nuts and seeds, it was the overconsumption of nuts and seeds. And if you do eat nuts and seeds, you should sprout them, which is soaking them overnight before you consume them makes a tremendous difference. But here's the thing. There's only 2 nuts, or maybe 3 nuts that you could eat, that you would eat in nature, the amounts that you would eat not that people are eating. And that would be pistachios and walnuts. Those are the only 2 nuts that are easy to get in without any tools, where you can eat a decent amount. Seeds are a little bit different. You can get in pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds quite easily. But there's no way you're going to be able to eat a pound of almonds in nature. It would take you days to unshell all those almonds or some of the other nuts. Pecans might be another easier one. Pecans, walnuts, and pistachios. But a lot of the other ones that people eat, you wouldn't be able to eat more than a handful in a couple of hours because how you have to unshell it and consume it. But when you go to the store and you buy a whole bunch of nuts that are, in a bulk bin and you put them in a bag, and that's what I did for years. Or the nut butters, you could end up eating a half a jar of nut butter. You go look at a label and see how much fat you're eating. And these so it wasn't nuts that are the reason, but it was over-consuming on the nuts that might have been the major issue. So these are things to consider when you're looking at your overall health program and what you're doing and what you're not doing. Now, depending when you watch this video, the holidays are coming up, and it always seems at the end of the year, they sell nuts in their whole shell. I don't know if it's for show or what it's for, but that's the way to get nuts, because they go rancid when they're deshelled and in the markets. They go rancid, so buy them in their shell, and you'll see for yourself how difficult they would be in nature and how hard they are to get a really good amount of nuts. But that could be a great example. So the ideal thing to do would be de-shell those nuts, maybe a handful, put it in a cup of water overnight, and then eat it. If you are going to consume nuts, that would be the best way. I mean, you could add it to a salad. You can make a salad dressing with it. But before you use the nut, it'd be ideal to buy it in its whole shell and also to shell it yourself and then soak it overnight. Then you're putting yourself in the best place. So keep that in mind as well. And while we're on the topic of things of going rancid, the omega-3 oils. We'll go back to what we talked about earlier. A lot of people say anytime you buy oil in a bottle, whatever kind of oil it is, whether it's olive oil that you're putting in your salad or omega-3 supplement, the oils are going to go rancid unless they're not refrigerated. That's one of the things Dr. Joel Fuhrman is saying about the product T cells. He says this vegan omega-3 is refrigerated, so it's not going to go rancid. So that's something to consider because most people have oils on their counter that they're using on a regular basis. And a lot of it's not even the real oil they bought because they're saying it's olive oil or avocado oil, but a lot of it's canola oil and it's mislabeled, mismarketed. There's very little regulation there. But even if you get the right oil, it's most likely has rancidity to some degree. So at this point, if you want to experiment with the omega-3 oil like I am, just as an experiment, doesn't mean I'm going to do it forever. For experimental purposes, one thing. But with the information that's come out about seed oils and other oils, I think they're one of the most common unhealthy things people are doing. And you'd be much better off if you took pretty much all oil out of your diet. I'm not saying all oils are bad, but I'm saying to get the good oil, it's very unlikely you're getting that great oil. So you're probably better off taking that oil out of your diet and you'll be better off for it. Experiment and see. Whether you test your blood work or you're trying to overcome an illness or something else, you'll see. And so that's something to consider. And so a lot of people have been contacting me. I appreciate the links and the things you're saying in the comments. Please continue to comment because we can continue this discussion. But that's what we're doing. We have the interview coming up with Dr. Joel Fuhrman and Gadev Palmer about what omega-3 tests are best and what oils might be helpful and not helpful. The nuts and seeds and my review or my testimonial with the astaxanthin and a whole bunch of other good things coming up. But as for me, I'm doing wonderful. I'm going to make another video because people have been asking me what I put in my salads every day and how big they are and what else I'm eating, what does one meal consist to, and the eating window of when I'm actually eating. And what I'm finding out is the ideal time for me and my schedule in my life would be from between noon and 2 p.m. So 11 and 1 would be acceptable as well. But I don't want to start eating later in the day. I feel better going to sleep without any food at all. And I'd rather not eat at all than to eat late at night. And consider that. You don't have to eat every day. If I'm eating one meal a day, or if I'm considering my juice a second meal and eating 2 times a day, great. But I think the more people are eating, the more you should fast from food, maybe 1 day a week, or maybe even more, just to kind of give your body a rest. So they call the 1 meal a day OMAD, and I think if people did at least that once 1 week a month, just ate 1 meal a day for at least 1 week, and then regularly ate 2, at most 3 meals a day without snacking, they'd be much better off. So I think the raw vegan diet is going to help you accomplish that if you do this the way I suggest with these things I'm recommending. But even if you're eating things I necessarily don't recommend, like animal products and things, the reason why so many people are having all these testimonials on a carnivore diet and all these things is not because they're eating meat, it's because they're reducing so much other stuff and they're not overeating on the food like they were in the past. They're taking things out. That's what the success has in common. And that's what's going to help you in the long run. So thank you all for your comments. and I'm going to keep you updated on these experiments that are going on. I'm making another video about sprouting and another video about juicing that I'm going to be uploading soon here. And I definitely recommend the Nama J2 juicer. I'll put that link below. There's so many great things coming here because in Florida it's the winter time. So my garden's growing now, the greens that I'm growing in my garden. And I also have fruit that's growing all year. I have another channel called Fruitful Trees, and you can see all the fruits I'm growing. And another thing before we go here, as I'll mention, I grow a lot of mangoes and other fruits out here in South Florida. And the main fruit season is this summertime. Okay? Well, I can't possibly eat all the fruit I'm growing, so what do I do with it? Some of it I sell, some of it I give away, some of it I enjoy. But with what's left over, I'm freezing a good amount of fruits. I want to do the things the most sustainable way as possible, so I'm growing things that I could freeze. Bananas, mangoes, and there's some other white sapote, and whatever I could freeze, a jackfruit. These to me are sustainably the best foods to grow, because you don't only have them during the season when they're in season, but you also have them in their season or out of season because they're frozen. Now, there's two other methods of preserving the food, or three, but I want to talk about two. There's drying, and then there's freeze drying. Now, drying through dehydration, I do not do, and I do not recommend. From a health standpoint, I think if you're drying fruit, it concentrates the sugars, and it's not necessarily a good thing. Now, freeze drying is excellent and wonderful, and I do recommend freeze drying for preserving the food. However, with the time and money it takes to do that, and with a nice high temperature deep freezer or low temperature deep freezer, I think you're going to get better results on some of the foods because they freeze better than others. So if you're freeze drying, it's still going to dry the food where you're still going to concentrate the sugars. But if you're freezing it, it's not going to do that. But if you're freezing it, it's not completely fresh, right? It's frozen. So if you lost some area of nutrition when you're freezing it. And I'm consuming now, not every day, but a good amount of food I'm consuming is my mangoes and my other fruit that I had in the summertime that I have frozen in the house now. Now I'm trying to figure out if that's impacting me in a negative or positive way. So I'm doing another little side experimenting, monitoring my bowel habits, considering my blood tests, and considering and noting how often and how much frozen fruit I'm eating to when I'm just eating fresh fruit. You know, I'm trying to buy as little produce from the supermarket as possible, even the health food stores, because I know that's not ideal. So I think me having frozen food in my house is better than me getting fresh food from the supermarket. However, I do have friends that sell food that's almost just as good as me buying the food because I've been to their farms, I know what they're growing, and this is what I recommend. Go to your local farmer's market, get to know the farmer, see what they're growing. Fresh is usually the best. So try to get as much fresh food as possible, and the ideal way to do that would be is find out who's growing what and get to know them. Avocados are in season now, and I have some avocado trees, but there are different varieties of avocados. So I have friends that sell avocados, and they ship them all over the country. And you could order things like avocados in the mail. It's persimmon season now, so I can go to the local supermarket and buy persimmons, but I know somebody who sells persimmons from Georgia. And I order a box and they ship it to me. I've been to their farm and I recommend things like that. Getting the food fresh from who you know where it's growing is better than even buying it fresh from the supermarket. So I'm just keeping note of the frozen food, how it's impacting me, trying to find out the ideal way to do it and what to do and how to do it. And that's what I've been doing for 30 years now, as I've been on a raw vegan diet. I just wish I would have earlier and sooner did some of these experiments the way I'm doing them now. But now I have the access and the availability to do these different comparative tests. And I do this with a lot of things. I do this with the types of fruit I eat during the fruit season and the vegetables I'm eating, just to try to find this out. And some people might say, well, that's neurotic, that's neurotic. I enjoy it. I don't think it's neurotic. I think it's a great, interesting topic. Your own health. You know, I think neurotic is listening to the doctors and taking their pills and potions all day long and going to their tests and all that stuff. I'd rather do it on my terms, not their terms. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your questions and comments. And I got so much great information coming up here. This is the Raw Life Health Show. And we also have, if you don't know, and if you're not watching this there, the Raw Life Health Show member website, where I do have a bunch of raw food recipes and additional videos that are and are not on my other social media platforms. So check that out. Until then, everybody, thank you for watching. Have a great day and have a great raw life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health.